Hey guys, I'm Di. I'm a travel writer, blogger, and digital nomad, and this is the Digital Nomad Q A, a series of videos where I answer the most common questions that I get from friends and family and strangers on the internet. Our question today is, where do digital nomads live? How do you move to a new city every month? Like, where do you go? Do you live in a hostel? Do you live in hotels? Do you live in Airbnbs? Do you house sit? The answer is that Dan and I have been digital nomads since 2017, and we have been doing long-term stays in Airbnbs the entire time. Now, the important thing to know is that a long-term stay in an Airbnb is super different than just like a regular weekend stay in an Airbnb, and booking one is a completely different process. So I'm gonna kind of explain a little bit about how I book these long-term Airbnbs and what our life is kind of like inside them if you want to start being a digital nomad too. Okay, when you're booking a long-term Airbnb, one of the most important things you have to do is make sure it's not a shared space. Personally, I really like my privacy, and I don't want to live in an apartment with a stranger that I just met. So I always book an entire home on Airbnb, but sometimes people list their houses as entire home because you have access to all of it, but they also live in it too. So look closely and make sure that's not the case before you book. And if you have any doubt, definitely message them. Second, make sure you look at the photos really closely. Look at the kitchen. Is there a fridge? Is there a hot plate, a full stove top? Is there an oven, microwave, toaster oven? Is there counter space? Is it cluttered? Is there a coffee maker? Basically, from what you can see in the photos, do you think you could cook 3 meals a day in the kitchen? That's gonna be a must, or you're gonna spend a ton of money eating out. The other thing I always look for is if the apartment itself is super cluttered and there's gonna be no place for me to put my stuff, I'll usually not book it. And also, look at the couch. Is there a place for you to sit and like really relax at night and watch TV? You know, like, this isn't vacation. You're not going to be out all night, every night. This is just day-to-day life, and you need somewhere to watch Netflix. Okay, speaking of Netflix, if you're going to be working from home and living in an Airbnb like Dan and I, then you absolutely need fast Wi-Fi. You're going to be more than just like Googling where to go out to eat and stuff like you do on vacation. So check the Wi-Fi speeds. See if anyone in the comments said fast Wi-Fi or slow Wi-Fi. If you can't tell and the Airbnb is in a city or a country that's known for having slow Wi-Fi maybe, or iffy Wi-Fi, message the host and ask them to do a Wi-Fi speed test and send you the results. Another thing that's different about living in an Airbnb versus just going to one for a few days is that you need to book it super far in advance, because if you're staying for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months and someone books 1 day in between your start and end date, then that entire Airbnb is no longer available to you. So I try and book mine at least 3 to 6 months in advance, and sometimes even a little bit more if I'm sure about where I'm going. And on that same topic, check the reviews and see if the host ever cancels. Because if the host has an automated review from Airbnb that says the host canceled this stay like 10 days out or 20 days out, this is an automatic review, that's a red flag. If you book like 5 months in advance and then the day before they cancel your multi-week or multi-month stay, it's going to be super hard and actually honestly probably impossible to get another one on short notice. So I never book an Airbnb if there's a comment saying that the host has canceled before, because that's just too risky for me. So another way that living in an Airbnb as a digital nomad is different than booking one for vacation is that you might not want to stay in the same neighborhood when you're living in a new city versus when you're just visiting for a few days. Because when you're just visiting, you kind of want to be near all the touristy stuff. It might be an expensive neighborhood. It might be like just have crappy food and overpriced boutiques because it's like just for tourists coming to the tourist sites. So there are other more livable neighborhoods, maybe with like grocery stores, pharmacies, cafes, less crowded, cheaper, that will be easier to actually live in and more enjoyable to live in, especially because if you're going to be living in a city for like 2 or 3 months, you have plenty of time to go see the tourist sites. So you don't need to be living like right on top of them. You would rather be living on top of the important stuff like grocery stores and pharmacies and cafes and nightlife and shops. So research where expats are living in the city rather than just where tourists are staying when they're visiting, and that will kind of give you a good idea of where you actually want to live in the Airbnb when you go for a long-term stay. Okay, my last tip when it comes to living in Airbnbs is that you need to understand the payment plan. There's one good side and one not so good side about it. So the good side is that you often get tons of discounts for booking a long-term Airbnb because you're saving the host time and money from just like swapping out tenants, cleaning the apartment, going to meet them, messaging them, and all that. So they're happy to have you stay for a long term. And me and Dan get discounts, sometimes like 20%, 30%. We've gotten up to 50% discounts and have stayed in some pretty nice Airbnbs for really good deals. That's the biggest perk about living in them and traveling long term in them. But the downside of this is that when you book a long-term Airbnb, you have to pay for the first month upfront, and it's non-refundable. So you need to be sure when you book, because if you cancel it, you're going to be out hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars. So my advice is be super sure about booking before you do. If you have any questions, message the host back and forth and make sure it's going to be a good fit, because canceling is going to be a nightmare. Okay, all that said, I love living in Airbnbs. I've been doing it since 2017. I usually live in them for 5 or 6 weeks at a time, pack up my backpack, move to the next city, move to the next country, and it's just super fun. I personally would recommend it to everyone. And if you have any questions about living in an Airbnb as a digital nomad, comment below or click the link below to read my article about it, which goes kind of more in depth. Anyway, enjoy, have fun. See you on the next video.